Alright, we're going to go through a quick review of classical conditioning. So again, it's important to know the terms, and remember you can pause me at any time. So I think one thing that's important to know is that when you hear the word conditioned, conditioned just means it is something that is learned. And the word unconditioned means something that is unlearned. Okay? And so here are all the terms again for you, and here are some definitions for you as well. Okay, so again, all of these terms mean something very specifically, but unconditioned means unlearned, conditioned means learned. So let's take a look at how this actually works. Okay, an unconditioned stimulus, sometimes you will see it written as this way as well, UCS. It's any stimulus that automatically triggers a response. So in the Pavlovian example, it is the food. The food actually makes us salivate. Okay? The salivation is something I do not have to teach. Therefore, it is a response. But we would put the adjective unconditioned in front of it because it's an unlearned response. We just do it instinctually. We do it naturally, innately, in response to food. Conditioned stimulus in classical conditioning is a stimulus that, if you go back to this slide, it has no effect on the desired response. So let's continue with the basic example of food and salivation. Well, if I rang a bell, usually dogs and cats do not naturally salivate to a bell. It doesn't elicit an unconditioned response, right? But I can associate it with food, which is an unconditioned stimulus, right? I can associate them in time the same way we come to expect thunder and lightning happening together. It's just basically classical conditioning is a type of associative learning. Eventually, the bell can come to elicit salivation. But now when the organism salivates in response to a bell, as opposed to food, we call the salivation a conditioned response, a learned response, because originally the dog did not salivate to a bell. It was only when the bell was repeatedly paired, right, with the food. So let's talk about how this process works. Okay, so in this picture, we have this cute little dog, and before conditioning, we have a little whistle. You see the whistle there? So blowing the whistle, nothing, no response. The dog doesn't associate a whistle with food, right? However, you see the dog salivating right here because we're showing the dog food. Okay, so what do we do if we, for some reason, want our dog to salivate to a whistle? Okay, what we do is, about a half second before we show the food, we blow the whistle. So it'll be neutral stimulus plus unconditioned stimulus. And this is about a half second before the presentation of the food. Okay? We pair those together. And eventually, through the dog will learn the association, and eventually the dog will salivate just in response to the whistle. So now the whistle has gone from a neutral stimulus to a conditioned stimulus because it evokes the conditioned response. This is often written in a few ways. So it's usually written like, this and no salivation, right? And then it is written like this, right? Because the dog is still responding really to the food. And then eventually it's written like this. Okay? And that represents this. Sometimes you will even see this stage written like this. Okay? Don't get confused by that. It just means, because really what's happening is this is our ultimate test when we present the whistle by itself, the conditioned stimulus by itself. But the animal is actually learning prior to this to salivate to the whistle. So it literally is, there are numerous pairings right here. This doesn't just happen once. See, this says during conditioning. This happens numerous times, meaning we put the whistle and the food together multiple times, not just once. And throughout that process, it is where the whistle becomes a conditioned stimulus. This is to test whether or not the animal has actually, we called it acquired, acquisition, has acquired learning. Okay? So that's the process of classical conditioning for you.